Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanamsari Jamuna Tira Vanamsari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Yashodanandana Brajajanarandana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Hare Bolo. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Kunda Bihari Radha Kunda Bihari Radhe Radha Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Gaura Primanandi Jai Vishnupada Paramahamsa Pri Vraj Gasaja Stotra Satya Sri Simad His Divine Grace Shirabai Charanarvind Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Iskandi BT Founder Charya's Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Samaveta Bhakti Vrinda Ki Harinam Sankirtan Ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Nitai Gaur Primanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru, to Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Ajnanatirandasya Gyananjana Sharakaya Chakshurunmiritam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaisnavam Sya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragunatam Vitam Tvam Sajivam Sarvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakanvitam Sya Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kancana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Suti Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vansakalpa Tarubhyasya Kripa Sindhu Vyaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Narayanam Namaskritya Dhram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraya. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, let us first offer respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Nara, Narayan Rishi, the supremmost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta Prayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Tamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. By regularly hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering service unto the pure devotee. All that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed practically to nil, and a loving devotional service unto the Supreme Lord, who is praised with transcendental songs, becomes established as an irrevocable fact. Idam Bhagavatam Nama Puranam Brahma Samhitam Uttama-shloka Charitam Sakara Bhagavan Rishi Nishreyasaya Lokasya Dhanyam Swasayanam Maha. This Srimad Bhagavatam, known as the Grantaraj, the king of all Vedic literatures, is the literary incarnation of God. It is compiled by the incarnation of God, Srila Vyasadeva. It is meant for the ultimate good of all people. It is all successful, all blissful, and all perfect. Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Gadadhara, Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Surabhyai Namaha. Om Surabhyai Namaha. Om Surabhyai Namaha. Mukam karoti vasaram pangum langayate girim. Yat kripat maham bandhe Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Yat kripat maham bandhe Sri Gurum Dinataranam. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Srimad Bhagavatam class. Reading from Canto number 7, continuing chapter 2. Hiranyakashipu, king of the demons. And today is 24. Text 24. Evam Gunair Brahmyamane Manasi Avikalaha Puman Yati Tat Samyatam Bhadre Hi Alingo Lingavan Iva Evam Gunair Brahmyamane Manasya Vikala Puman Yati Tat Samyatam Bhadre Yalingo Lingavandiva Evam Gunair Brahmyamane Manasya Vikala Puman Yati Tat Samyatam Bhadre Yalingo Lingavan Iva Evam Gunair Brahmyamane Manasya Vikala Puman Yati Tat Samyatam Bhadre Yalingo Lingavandiva. Evam Gunair Brahmyamani Manasya Vikalapuman Yati Tatsamyatam Bhadre Yalingo Lingavandiva. Evam Gunair Brahmyamani Manasya Vikalapuman Yati Tatsamyatam Bhadre Yalingo Lingavandiva. Evam Gunair Brahmyamani Manasya Vikalapuman Yati Tatsamyatam Bhadre Yalingo Lingavaniva. Manasya Vikalapuman Yati Tatsamyatam Bhadre Yalingo Lingavaniva. Evam Gunair Brahmyamani Manasya Vikalapuman Yatat Samyatam Bhadre Yalingo Lingavaniva. Evam. In this way, Gunai, by the modes of material nature, Brahmyamani, when shaken, Manasi, the mind, Avikalaha, changeless, Puman, the living entity, Yati, approaches, Tatsamyatam, the same condition of agitation as the mind. Bhadre, O my gentle mother, he, indeed, Alingaha, without a subtle or gross body. Lingavan, possessing a material body. Eva, as if. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. In this way, O gentle mother, this is Hiranyakashipu speaking to his mother and other relatives, trying to console them due to the death of his dear brother Hiranyaksha. Yeah. In this way, O my gentle mother, when the mind is agitated by the movements of the modes of material nature, the living entity, although freed from all the different phases of the subtle and gross bodies, thinks that he has changed from one condition to another. Kindly repeat after me. In this way, O my gentle mother, when the mind is agitated by the movements of the modes of material nature, the living entity, although freed from all the different phases of the subtle and gross bodies, thinks that he has changed from one condition to another. Purport. As stated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, chapter 84, text 13. Yasyatma buddhi kunape tridhatuke swadhi kalatradishu bhauma ijjadhi yatirtha buddhi salike nakar hichi janeshva vigneshu saeva go karaha. Translation: a human being who identifies the body made of three elements as the self, who considers the byproducts of the body to be his kinsmen, who considers the land of his birth worshipable, and who goes to a place of pilgrimage simply to bathe rather than to meet men of transcendental knowledge there, is to be considered like a cow or an ass. End of the quote. Although Hiranyakashipu was a great demon, he was not as foolish as the population of the modern world. Hiranyakashipu had clear knowledge of the spirit soul and the subtle and gross bodies. But now we are so degraded that everyone, including the exalted scientists, philosophers, and other leaders, is under the bodily conception of life, which is condemned in the Shastras. Saeva go karaha. Such persons are nothing but cows and asses. Hiranyakashipu Hare Krishna. Hiranyakashipu advised his family members that although the gross body of his brother Hiranyaksha was dead, and they were aggrieved because of this, they should not lament for the great soul of Hiranyaksha, who had already attained his next destination. Atma, the spirit soul. Hare Krishna. I'll keep this one not so heavy. Atma, the spirit soul, is always unchanged. Avikalaha Puman. We are spirit souls, but when carried away by mental activities, manodharma, we suffer from so-called material conditions of life. This generally happens to non-devotees. Harav abhaktasya kuto mahad gunaha. Non-devotees may possess exalted material qualities, but because they are foolish, they have no good qualifications. The designations of the conditioned soul in the material world are decorations of the dead body. The conditioned soul has no information of the spirit and its exalted existence beyond the effects of the material condition. Translation again. In this way, O gentle mother, when the mind is agitated by the movements of the modes of material nature, the living entity, although freed from all different phases of the subtle and gross bodies, thinks that he has changed from one condition to another. So this is Hiranyakashipu speaking nice philosophy. Even persons of a Prabhupada is making the point actually in the purport that the words of Hiranyakashipu, although Hiranyakashipu is described as a great demon, indicate that he was more advanced than our modern day leaders who are devoid, completely devoid of Vedic culture. At least in the Vedic culture, Prabhupada would explain, people in India, even the most common person, knows about the soul, knows that this body is temporary, knows about reincarnation, basic aspects of tattva. That is why when we totally become disconnected with the culture, Vedic culture, then we completely, fully become heavily influenced by these modes of material nature. Of course, even for devotees, these modes of material nature are so powerful that they also will influence those who are endeavoring to become enlightened. These are the two potencies of Maya. The covering potency, and then, what's the other one? Huh? One is, the covering potency and the throwing potency. I'm not a Sanskrit scholar. But covering potency are those who are absolutely having no knowledge about Shastra. They are fully, completely, 108% covered and influenced by the modes of material nature. And their situation actually is hopeless. Hopeless in the sense that they are forced to act. They are 100% forced to act according to the influence of these modes of material nature. From the very moment they are born, isn't it? So that is the heavy covering. Those who are in that position, they don't even know that they are doing things wrong. They don't know that they are engaged in sinful activities. And they cannot prevent themselves as well. They're forced. That is how powerful is Maya. Whereas those who are fortunate to begin cultivating this knowledge, means devotees, they will sometimes be, although they are practicing, due to various reasons, possibly inattentiveness in our practice, due to possibly offenses that we commit, we will, there is all likelihood of being thrown off the path, so to speak, at least temporarily. The main difference, the big difference between those who are completely covered, means the non-devotees, and those who are practicing devotees, is that the practicing devotees, those who have the great fortune of having come in contact with this knowledge, they are assured of becoming actually completely liberated from the material world, number one. And secondly, they come under the direct supervision and shelter actually of Krishna. So therefore, naturally, their situation is very vastly different. There is all hope for those who have come in contact with the process. Of course, it's a long process. I mean, after many, Krishna explains also in the Bhagavad Gita, Bahunam Janmanam Ante Jnanavam Mam Prapadyate Vasudeva Sarvamiti Samahatma Sujolabha. It is very rare to come in contact with transcendental knowledge, and it is even more rare to actually understand what is meant to be, or what is the culmination of that transcendental knowledge, isn't it? That's why Srila Rupa Goswami explains how, in the beginning of the Nectar of Devotion, one of the 6 characteristics, that devotional service is rarely achieved. Pure devotional service, even mixed devotional service, is rarely achieved. And this is all due, of course, to our continued association or contact with the modes of material nature. These modes of material nature are what make up this prakriti. Prakriti means actually this contact with these modes of material nature. And therefore, unless one is having that great fortune to come in contact with someone who is practicing, that is explained also very nicely in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, that this Krishna Bhakti, this process of devotional service to the Lord, Krishna Bhakti Janmamul Hoy Sadhu Sangha. The birth or the appearance of bhakti is only possible through sadhu sangha. And that same verse actually explains how Krishna Prema, which is the ultimate end result or goal of Krishna Bhakti, Krishna Prema also is only possible through that same sadhu sangha. So in other words, sadhu sangha, sarva shastra koi, labha matra sadhu sange, sarva siddhi hoy, sarva siddhi. All perfection is attained when one continues with this sadhu sangha. I think in the purport here, also Prabhupada mentioning how Sometimes people go to places of pilgrimage. That is the special feature and opportunity that one has in the land of Bharat in India. So many places of pilgrimage are there. There are not very many in Canada. However, unfortunately, the majority of people who go to such places of pilgrimage, they forget to do what is the most important activity. They will go to the temple, of course. They will take prasadam in the temple also. They will go bathe in, usually there's a sacred river or a lake. But they will avoid, or they will not take the opportunity of actually seeking out or finding out sadhus who are living in that place and get spiritual knowledge from them. Srila Prabhupada used to explain how, and this is very much part of the Vedic culture, how his father every single day he would invite sadhus to his home and offer them prasadam. So in this way, he would get the association of sadhus and hear from them, and in this way, gradually one takes up the process of devotional service. So whole Vedic culture is teaching us how, especially we could say in modern day society when activities, dharmic activities are so rampant, and the association of devotees becomes even more critical. And again, it is for this reason, this is one of the 5 main instructions also given, that very nice verse in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan Bhagavat Sravana. Again, Sadhu Sangha emphasized in so many places. Sadhu Sangha Nama Kirtan Bhagavat Sravana Maturabhasa Sri Murtira Sradhaya Sevana Sakala Sadhana Srestha E Pancha Anga Krishna Prema Janma E Pancher Alpo Sangha. Even a small amount of association with any of these 5 principles, beginning with Sadhu Sangha. It all begins actually with Sadhu Sangha. Brahmanda Brahmati Kono Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. By associating with devotees, we get this opportunity of receiving this Bhakti Lata Bij, this seed of bhakti, of devotion. And that is actually the most precious gift that we can receive from anyone. That is what sadhus, that is what Vaishnavas especially carry, this gift of bhakti. And that was actually the the mood of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that I have so many fruits to distribute, but I cannot alone. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya invited and gave the opportunity to as many living entities as possible to take up to the process of bhakti. Bhakti is the culmination of all transcendental knowledge, isn't it? Bhakti is the essence of the Vedic knowledge of the Vedic literatures, and it is only when one again reawakens this natural, bhakti means one's natural loving propensity. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, he is, him and his eternal associates are constantly immersed and swimming in the ocean of bhakti, bhakti rasamrita sindhu, the ocean of transcendental bliss and love. And therefore, when we take up the process of devotional service, we also get that opportunity to gradually, by the process of purification, immerse ourselves. Otherwise, we are pulled constantly by these gunas, these modes of material nature, because they are all pervading. They're everywhere in the material world. Material world means this constant influence of these modes of material nature. And especially this comes out through the influence of the uncontrolled mind. The material mind is pulling us again and again, constantly, in activities, bodily activities, activities of sense gratification. So therefore, here Hiranyakashipu is speaking about some of these things, and therefore Srila Prabhupada is underlying how even such a great personality, as we mentioned a few minutes ago, compared to the very fallen condition of those who are completely separated from Vedic culture. Such personalities who are devoid of this transcendental knowledge simply mislead others and actually purposely maintain them on the bodily platform, where people naturally are constantly disturbed, both on the gross bodily level as well as the subtle level, the level of the mind. So Krishna consciousness means, like this verse is telling, Hiranyakashipu is explaining to his relatives, in particular to his mother, that when the mind is, I'll just read the verse again. In this way, O my gentle mother, when the mind is agitated by the movements of the modes of material nature. So it means that actually until and unless one becomes fixed in transcendence, he will be constantly pressured, agitated, pulled here and there by these modes of material nature. So when the mind is agitated by the movements of the modes of material nature, and Krishna explains very nicely also in the Bhagavad Gita, that even when one becomes situated in the mode of goodness, and of course we should endeavor to become situated in the mode of goodness, but even the mode of goodness is not fully secure because there is a constant competition, constant battle. Even someone in the mode of goodness can be pulled down by the mode of passion and the mode of ignorance. Yeah. So, of course, of the three modes, the mode of goodness is the best one, but it is not the ultimate, we could say, secure position. When the mind is agitated by the movements of the modes of material nature, the living entity, although freed from all the different phases of the subtle and gross bodies, thinks that he has changed from one condition to another. And the purport proper is explaining that actually one who is truly above the gross and subtle conceptions of life, he becomes truly fixed. I mean, he becomes fixed in his constitutional nature and constitutional position as someone fully absorbed in serving, in devotional service. And of course, in our particular situation, in the context of the movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that also should bring us, should lead us to the point of becoming as involved or as active as possible in the preaching mission of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Or, for that matter, Krishna, when he appears, either directly himself or through his different incarnations, has a mission. It means a devotee should understand what is the mission of the Lord, should understand what is the mission of life, and should actually work in such a way, arrange one's life in such a way that he becomes more and more fixed and focused on this mission of life, which is, of course, on an individual level. All of us, from the moment we wake up in the morning till the time we go to bed, we have all kinds of opportunities to to make progress individually and also to help the overall preaching mission of the Lord. And that mission of the Lord, of course, also described in the Bhagavad Gita. It is to help the Lord and his associates, to help the Lord and his various acharyas who are foremost in promoting the mission of the Lord, to help reestablish, isn't it, dharma samstapanartaya, to reestablish the principles of dharma. So devotee's life is meant to be very intimately connected with this, not only the philosophical aspects of what Krishna consciousness is all about. Important to understand the philosophy, at least the basics of the philosophy. As important to understand the philosophy is to put it into practice, and to understand what is actually the mission of the Lord. In one nice explanation regarding how to control the mind, because that is always, I think, one of the favorite questions or most prominent questions that comes up again and again and again and again. Yeah. Because, yeah, right. Well, hopefully not forever. But so Prabhupada was in that particular response was telling that the best way, because everyone, that's the question, what to do about my mind? It's my mind, what to do about my mind. So Prabhupada was answering how the best way to control the mind was to direct the mind, to engage the mind in the preaching mission of the Lord. Actually, that is the primary goal and objective of a disciple, of a follower of Vedic culture. Follower of Vedic culture means he takes up the Vedic culture through the guidance of acharyas, guru, and therefore the primary duty and responsibility of a disciple is to understand what is that mission of the Lord, and what is the mission that is being given presently, because things are constantly in flux, isn't it, in the material world, changing all the time. And sometimes it's more important or necessary to give emphasis on some particular aspect, because Dharma is like huge. Dharma covers everything, isn't it? And therefore, what our acharyas speak, and in particular for our, in our situation, what the founder acharya of ISKCON, His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada, what he spoke, what he continues to speak also in his lectures and his purports, etc., that is meant to be the primary focus of attention for anyone who actually is serious about making spiritual advancement and who is sincerely wanting to help the Lord and his devotees in actually fulfilling the actual mission of the Lord. So Prabhupada was, it's a very nice explanation actually. There are many answers to the question how to control the mind. This is one of the, I found that particular explanation by Srila Prabhupada very inspiring, in that with the situation in the world being such that the vast majority of people are engaged in adharmic activities, so there's a very urgent need to somehow, in different ways, give people that opportunity to know about Dharma, to know about this knowledge of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. And yeah, just recently I was, I forget the context, but one of our acharyas, and I'm sure more than one of our acharyas, underlining the absolute importance and necessity to very thoroughly know the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. Everything begins in the Bhagavad Gita. Although we say sometimes, well, Bhagavad Gita is the ABC of spiritual life. Well, you know, ABC is pretty important. If you don't know ABC, then you can't write, isn't it? You're completely uneducated, foolish person, ultimately. So ABC of anything is really, really essential. And of course, I mean, in our present day situation, as we all know, I can speak for myself, especially coming from the West, but more so for those coming, like myself, from the West. Even the ABC, when we first come in contact with it, is not so obvious. many people who have had no contact whatsoever with Vedic culture. Well, it's right here, so I'll open this one. This is Bhagavad Gita. They'll open the Bhagavad Gita and then again they'll close it because it's like too much. Especially the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is a major challenge because Krishna is not to be. I mean, Krishna is there, but he's not speaking. and for someone who is completely disconnected, which is the situation for the vast majority of people in the world today. Bhagavad Gita, people are looking for peace and love, and on a battlefield, not obvious. In Christianity, as I'm sure you're all aware, one of the first commandments is "Thou shalt not kill." And if one opens the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is telling, kill. So it's like confusing. So, yeah, right. Not only that, actually, in Indonesia, which is a land where Vedic culture is even to this day very prominent because of their close, intimate connection with India, with the Vedic culture. Even like 80% of the language spoken by those who are living on the island of Java. Java is the most populated island of India. Doesn't really have the concept of islands. I mean, of course, ocean is surrounding India, but in Indonesia they have like 15,000 islands. And the most populated island is Java. Java is where the capital of Indonesia is, Jakarta. On that island, there are over 100 million people. A little bit crowded. And 80% of the Javanese language is Sanskrit to this day. So at one point when our devotees in the early days translated the Bhagavad Gita in what they call Bahasa Indonesia. When it came to the 18th chapter, Sarva Dharmam Parityaja, abandon dharma. They know about dharma. So it was, I think, not translated properly, and the message that came across was throw out dharma. So the end result of that actually was that devotees were banned for many years, actually. Anyway, there's a whole story. I won't get into that. It's still some misunderstanding is still there, which is not unusual in Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is the age of misunderstanding and whatnot. So, maybe we can stop here and see if there's any comments or questions. I know there's going to be at least one question. Yeah, okay. Mind control. Yes, another mind question. How to desensitize our mind? De-emphasize. Desensitize.
And at the same time, not be insensitive or indifferent.
How to be insensitive and not be insensitive.
How to desensitize the mind. In the sense, usually we are very sensitive. We are either in Rajo or Tamoguна.
Yes.
So, but at the same time, see, when we try to become desensitized, we also kind of become insensitive to the others and indifferent to the others.
So,
How to
okay.
maintain that balance?
How to maintain the balance in minimizing the importance of our agitated mind. Mind tends to be agitated, and at the same time be sensitive to others. Yeah. The only way to do that is to spiritualize our material mind. Our process in Krishna consciousness is not to do away with our material mind, but it is actually to transform or change that material mind from, you see, what are the activities of the mind? Thinking, feeling, and willing. So our goal in Krishna consciousness is not to stop our thinking, feeling, and willing, but to actually spiritualize that thinking, feeling, and willing, you see. Our material mind and our material intelligence simply, well, simple enough to say, but actually that is the formula. Our material mind, our material intelligence, including our material body and our material senses, by the process of bhakti, gradually when we apply that process, they become gradually transformed, or through through the process of bhakti, they become spiritualized, isn't it? As Prabhupada would say in the very beginning, Krishnaize. So it's not that when we become devotees, we no longer have any feelings or any thoughts or desires. But our thoughts, our feelings, and our desires, they are they take on a spiritual dimension, and therefore we learn to identify what is material thinking, material desire. We minimize that, and we increase the spiritual aspect of thinking, feeling, and willing. By seeing things, by understanding things in the context of transcendental knowledge. That's why if we don't have access and if we're not cultivating transcendental knowledge, we'll never succeed in controlling our mind. You know, even when one may come to the level of being philanthropic, and you know, we hear about different organizations or people sometimes will join different movements because they try to do good. But what is good actually? What is actual good is only when we come in contact with these principles of dharma, because goodness, as we learn from Bhagavad Gita, can be either goodness in the mode of ignorance, goodness in the mode of passion, or goodness in the mode of goodness. I mean, everything is under the influence of these modes of material nature. So therefore, only this knowledge or this science of bhakti can gradually bring us above these different levels, and so that, in other words, the more we apply the process, then we will gradually be in a more, what is the end result of this process? It helps to make our mind more clear, isn't it? Purification means to become more clear. Yeah. So then we'll be able to differentiate what is activities of the mind that are more towards the material, bodily, mental aspect or dimension, as opposed to the more transcendental or spiritual aspects, yeah. Something like that. Yes.
Maharaj, we see that Jay Vijay were on the transcendental platform. They were in Vaikuntha,
Yes.
almost in the interior chamber of the Lord, actually. And they committed offense against the Brahmanas.
Yeah.
They were not Vaishnavas. They had not come to the Vaishnava platform.
Right.
So, but the Lord took it very seriously, offenses that they committed, and they are punished for that. So, what about as practicing or aspiring Vaishnavas commit the offenses? Actually, what would be our
Okay, so your point is that when the four Kumaras went to the gate of Vaikuntha, they were stopped by Jain Vijay, and that was an offense. That was considered an offense, and the Lord took it very seriously. So your point is that although, at that time, the four Kumaras were not yet on the level of
personalists? They were still impersonalists.
yeah, they were still impersonalists. So your question is, if the Lord took matters so seriously and punished Jain Vijay, what is our position? So it means that it is even. It means that knowing this particular lila, we need to become even more cautious or careful. But at the same time, we also know that the Lord is always very merciful, and to those who even begin the process of bhakti, even though we are, as you rightly mentioned, we are aspiring devotees, we are endeavoring to become Vaishnavas. To become Vaishnava, we all know, is not such an easy thing. But to one who begins that process, Krishna immediately reciprocates in that as long as one is, inevitably we will make mistakes. That is to be expected. What is most important is that one remain sincere in wanting to make progress, even though at times mistakes may be there. And we should know that Krishna, we were mentioning a little earlier, he, from the very beginning that we make that one step towards him, he takes direct charge of those living entities. So therefore, these, and there are many examples, of course, in the Shastra, those examples are there to help us understand how we should be cautious in our dealings, especially with other Vaishnavas, and that we should be serious in applying the process once having come in contact with this knowledge of Krishna consciousness. But we should know that the Lord is always merciful. Krishna understands. I mean, he created the material world. He knows what it's all about. He knows how difficult it is for the jiva, for the living entities. So when he sees someone making that effort, taking those initial steps, then he provides maximum opportunities and ready to again and again give opportunities to people who are making different mistakes like that. So it means we need to be more cautious in our dealings with not only Vaishnavas, actually with all living entities. Bhagavatam nicely explains how any activity which impedes or obstructs in any way the progress of other living entities is offensive, is an offense, and can slow down our practice or our progress actually in spiritual life. So we come to learn how actually every living entity is on, regardless of what species one may be in, one spirit soul is present everywhere, and therefore we should avoid causing any kind of suffering to other living entities or impede their progress in different ways. Yeah. Any other? Yes.
Please in the report, or perhaps in the first part of the lecture, it was mentioned that the current people in Kali Yuga, they
Are
nothing
less than Hiranyakashipu.
I'm in full agreement.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm definitely
You've seen or have experienced that?
with myself.
Yeah, yeah. No, no.
It's quite and seeing that Hiranyakashipu possessed Vedic knowledge, and yet in the story he's not the hero. He's
Yeah, right. Yeah.
then similarly I see that I might know the spiritual knowledge, but it's not transforming my heart. Spiritual results not.
Yes.
So how do we overcome that gap?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting statement that Prabhupada makes, actually. I'll just read that sentence for those who are not here. Hiranyakashipu had clear knowledge of the spirit soul and the subtle and gross bodies. But now we are so degraded that everyone, including the exalted scientists, philosophers, and other leaders, is under the bodily conception of life, which is condemned in the Shastras. Yeah. So, yeah, we are in Kali Yuga, where the most fallen, Kali Yuga is especially there for the most fallen conditioned souls, you know. And therefore, our only hope, besides the expression or the explanation given by Srila Rupa Goswami, it's a very important and integral part of our philosophy, to hope against hope. When there is seemingly no hope, our acharyas teach us hope against hope is very much part of our philosophy. Number one. Secondly, it is for this reason that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has appeared in this age of Kali to deliver the most fallen. And therefore, as many of our acharyas have explained and also sung and written about, that my claim is the first because I'm the most fallen. That is their mood and their mentality. Because, of course, that was expressed by some of our great personalities who did not live in the present day society, which is, let's say, modern day society, 21st century. There's absolutely no comparison to 500 years ago. You know, 500 years ago, even 50 years ago or 100 years ago, the kind of degradation that is existing today in the world is like unphantom, unthinkable compared to, you know, previously. And therefore, it becomes even more relevant, you know, the presence and the gift that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is offering to humanity. He has come actually for the most fallen, for the most degraded. And that includes those who are even more degraded, let's say, today in the 21st century, and that there's no end to degradation, practically speaking. Unfortunately, there is one end in that when one will be fortunate enough to come in contact with the unlimited mercy that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his process, the Sankirtan movement, is offering to humanity. So our hope against hope is very much directly and intimately connected with what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has to offer. And of course, what Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is offering, just this morning I was hearing a short lecture by Srila Prabhupada, who was telling that actually Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu comes for the same purpose as Lord Krishna. Lord Krishna comes to kill the demons, to protect the devotees and to establish dharma, isn't it? Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he comes to kill the demoniac mentality of the Jagais. Well, there were only 2 Jagais and Madais, as Prabhupada explains. Now the whole world is full of Jagais and Madais. So therefore, unlimited opportunities for the Vaishnavas to go after the Jagais and Madais. Yeah. Of course, we also have tinges of Jagais and Madais within our hearts, and therefore we need to take seriously the process, and our process is like it's a dual process, isn't it? We continue to work individually on our own consciousness. That means achar, we work on our sadhana, and simultaneously we also are conscious of the need to preach. Achar and prachar need to go hand in hand. To the extent that we are very serious and determined to improve ourselves individually by maintaining a strong sadhana, then we are in a better position, isn't it? We're in a better position to be effective by receiving the mercy of Krishna to help others also at least begin taking up the process. So there is hope for everyone, including you, including yourself. There's hope for everyone due to the mercy. If Lord Chaitanya had not appeared, then we would really be in a bad position. We would be in a hopeless position, actually. So that is the reason why we should take up, understand, and put into practice what Lord Chaitanya has given us through his various representatives. Yeah. Any other last comment?
Because of the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we are under your shelter. Otherwise, we would have been in the parampara of Jagai and Madai.
Well, I can carry that also by saying that, yeah, it is only by the mercy of Prabhupada that people from the Western countries are given an opportunity to begin practicing Krishna consciousness. Yeah, it's all the mercy of Krishna and those who are fortunate to come in contact with those teachings that we have opportunity to to work things out with our minds.
I think one good thing is when we practice Krishna consciousness, spirituality, then at least we are able to realize that we have Jagai mentality within us. Otherwise, we don't even realize.
Correct. Yeah.
It helps us to realize how much demoniac we have. Like as you said, I feel like I am also not less than Hiranyakashipu. How do you feel? Because you practice spirituality, you went to the higher level. That's why you could see that there is some.
Yeah.
Otherwise, how we would realize also that we are in wrong or we are like
Yes. We were making that point actually at the beginning. I think a little bit before you came, how the vast majority. Yeah, we were speaking about the two influences of Maya. Maya covers completely covers the living entity, conditioned soul. That is the meaning of Baddha Jeev. But even for a devotee, Maya also throws one off the course, so to speak. So these are the two energies, the covering potency of Maya and the throwing potency of Maya. It's better to be in the throwing potency, under the influence of the throwing potency, because at least some knowledge we are beginning to understand, even though we may at times, due to various factors, be thrown off course, so to speak. At least we know, and the vast majority of people who are totally covered by Maya, they don't even know. They don't even know that they're in Maya. They don't know what is sinful activities. Their condition is very deplorable, very, hopeless. It's a hopeless situation. Their only hope is to come in contact with Bhagavad Gita. Their only hope is to come in contact with devotional service, devotees. And their only hope is to come in contact with Prasadam, which is the next one. Okay. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Gaura Pimanandi.
Jai.
Oops. Hare Krishna. Hare Bo.
Son, right?
You take. Yeah. This is our position. The mercy is coming, but we are resisting the mercy. Jai. Hare Krishna. Oh, that one is also there. Okay. Got it. Okay. Daily ritual. Nice. Okay. You can put it. Surprised to see Govinda here this morning. Very well. Hare Krishna. Jai. Go give your garland. Yeah. Hare Krishna. Okay. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you. There. Anyway, thank you. Hare Krishna. There. Okay. Anyway. Oh. Okay. Anyway. From here, is it? Okay. Huh? Is it, huh? Okay, nice. Thank you. Oh, thank you. Homegrown? Okay. You have garden, I guess, yeah. Nice. Thank you. You can, some of these you can put on the altar. You can take and. Yeah.
Hey, Kanaya.
Vegetables grown
From your garden?
and Yugal Kishore Prabhu's.
Oh, is it, huh?
His down.
You don't have a garden?
I live in an apartment. But I grew some little Malabar spinach.
Oh, I see, okay. Okay.
That's a very good thing, right? This is the drumstick leaf.
This?
Correct, right? Yeah, morning. Best in
Oh, is it, huh? What do you call it? Iron.
Yes, yes, sir.
Iron, okay. Okay. Very good. You can put it here maybe.
We don't get them so easily here.
Is it, huh? Okay. Thank you. There. Here. Oh, since you're here. Hare Krishna.
Doing wonderful Buddhism, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna. Huh?
Wonderful Buddhism.
Wonderful.
Buddhism.
Oh, yes, yes.
She's Radha Radhika Devi Das. She got initiated for the last.
Oh, okay. Haribol.
They have a big congregation there in Lecture, where Madhav Manohini Devdasi, Manjula Mataji we call her.
Okay.
She is actually preaching to all of them.
Okay, nice.
There's a very good group of Matajis there.
Nice.
She's a very good
Nice.
distributor.
Yeah, Haribol.
Also interested in village preaching.
Okay, very good. Yeah,
Children. Yeah, she teaches to children.
to children also. Okay, nice. Online or live?
Right now it's
Online, huh?
but earlier
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was at home.
Correct, yeah, yeah. Very good. Hare Krishna. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Haribol. Jai. Oh, she smiled. Hare Krishna. No. Here. Okay, give it to her sister. Yes, very well. Hare Krishna. Cries of ecstasy. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. There. Okay. Yes. Very well. Please come for prasadam, those who did not get. Hare Krishna. There. Haribol. Jai. You know, this your boy?
Yes, ma'am.
How old is he now?
2.5 years.
2.5, huh?